Hey, hey, Crystal.
Hi, good afternoon. Good afternoon. How's it going?
Good, good. I was just telling the people about the location change, and I'm glad that you're here. Let's jump in.
Yeah. Okay, excellent. So I'm really excited about today's people chat. It's actually kind of like near and dear to my heart a little bit. Thinking about, having a culture and ethos within your organization that really looks at building dialogue, conversation, and multi-directional conversation. So today's topic, again, I said I'm really excited about it, is before bad news strikes. So three types of conversations that you should have early and often. And this really seeks to support your people and helping them to be the best that they can be in order to really drive impact for your organization. So I know a lot of times as leaders, we are just so focused on one, day-to-day tasks, the strategic direction of the organization, ensuring that we're meeting our goals and really executing our vision very well, that it may be put to the back burner to have these ongoing conversations with the people that we work with as well as our volunteers. But it's vitally important that we do have conversations that are ongoing and really help build a culture of open dialogue. Many times we start having these conversations too late in the process. So when a deadline is missed or a deliverable is not delivered in the fashion that you were expecting, or let's say some of our strategic objectives aren't being fulfilled. And so then we have to have these hard or difficult conversations with people that are often thinking about remediation versus really growth, development, and ensuring that they're thriving in their position. So, as an HR professional, I really suggest to leaders to have three types of conversations with their people to really ensure that you're talking often, you're talking early, so that when you do possibly have to have more difficult conversations, you've already developed a rapport, an open, trusting environment where people are willing to engage and kind of bring their best ideas, best thinking, and a more collaborative approach. So, like I said, I'm really excited to kind
Yes.
of dig in. But before we dig in, like, do you want to say anything else, or should I just keep going?
Well, Krista, I just think that it makes a lot of sense. We as organizational leaders, we exist. Well, our organization exists because of a mission, but it incorporates people. Like everything involves people. It's not just a static organization like a machine. It's an organism because there are people with feelings and personalities, and without having a framework for conversations, it can make things really difficult when you're trying to get things done. So I'm really glad that you're leading the way through this conversation. Like, what are those conversations that we should have? Real quick, on a practical note, I just want to tell you, if you're watching this broadcast for the first time, one, we are a part of the COO team, and our purpose is to help leaders like you. So if you are watching this broadcast and you know of other leaders that are leading maybe a business or a nonprofit, we want to encourage you to just go ahead and share this to your page, because maybe there are others that you know that need to be having these three conversations before stuff hits the fan. So, friends help friends, and prevention, an ounce of prevention is, what is it, better than a pound of cure. So
Mm-hmm,
I just want
mm-hmm,
to
mm-hmm.
just say, if you can go ahead and share this to your wall, I think that would be really helpful.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. And definitely during our conversation, if you're watching real time, feel free to drop any questions or insights that you might have. And if you're watching the replay, feel free to drop a comment and we'll respond to that as well.
Yes.
So yeah, like I said, really, in an organization, because people are our greatest asset, we really should be having dialogue and conversation on an ongoing basis, which is proactive in nature and really just ensuring that we have a collaborative, integrated environment.
Mm.
So there are three types of conversations that I'll talk about. There are actually more, but we kind of distill them into like three different buckets that you should have early and often in a proactive culture to really be able to grow this collaborative environment. So the first conversation that I would say that you should have is the first 90 days. So with the first 90 days, this is a really critical point in an individual's life with your organization. So whether it's the first 90 days a new employee is on board, or the first 90 days that someone has transitioned into a new role, I would support having very open conversations with the individual as they're starting their onboarding and their assimilation, so to speak, within the organization and within the role. One thing that I didn't mention that I should back up with all of these conversations, a lot of times as leaders, we'll come in with like kind of our agenda, the different points that we want to talk about, and it's very kind of action oriented. With these different conversations that we're talking about today, they are, yes, you may have an agenda, but they're really seeking to hear from the staff member, or if you're having conversations with volunteers, but it's really to hear from the person, to see how things are going, to be able to really get a good sense of what they're like accomplishing, as well as what some of the challenges are, and to have a more kind of proactive problem solving approach to really be able to support them and give them the tools that they need to thrive. So with that, within the first 90 days, you definitely want to have regular conversations with individuals to really understand, okay, how is the job going? What questions do you have? What are you encountering? And what tools and resources can I, as a leader, and then as an organization, can we provide to ensure that you're successful in what you have undertaken? Also, I mean, being within an organization for a long period of time, you may lose sight of what it is to like be new in a place or new in a role, and what comes second nature to you doesn't necessarily come second nature to that individual. So this is a really good time. Like, some people aren't going to like ask questions. One, they might not ask the questions because they're like, this is a really simple thing I should be able to figure out on my own, or I'm asking them questions every single day, like I don't want to seem incompetent. But this particular conversation really allows like, hey, so tell us how things are going and let me know how I can be of help to you. It's really kind of opening it up to like, we're here to help you learn and grow, and know that there are some things that you might not know, but I don't know how best to help you if you don't provide that feedback to me. So this type of conversation is really just being very open and saying what resources we need to gather for these individuals to really support them. And then also, you know, if there's something that they're struggling with, that's a great opportunity to be able to highlight that before it like turns into a totally missed deliverable or like missed expectations. But if there are areas where they're struggling or you need more support, you can proactively build that in. And I think it's really good as as the person who is like the subject of this conversation, it's really good to be able to put it out there before you're in a vulnerable position where it's going to impact your job performance.
Yeah.
But instead, it's like, you know, you're new. Let's talk about this and let's really support and help you in that.
You know,
So that first type of conversation is the first 90 days.
Crystal, I think that that makes a lot of sense. And there are a couple themes that I'm hearing even in what you're saying. One is just to be proactive and not assumptive. People have different learning styles. And like you mentioned, you know, some of us are like, if you don't know, you better ask somebody. And so I tend to ask a lot of questions when I'm new to a place. But what if that person is maybe not as outgoing or proactive in terms of verbalizing their concerns or their questions? And so part of a good, solid onboarding process and leadership is taking leadership in that and saying, I'm not going to assume that I'm telling you everything that you need to know as thoroughly as you need to hear it. I'm also not going to assume that I've thought through everything and that our onboarding process is perfect. So let me ask you if there's anything that you need, anything that's missing, any way that I can help beyond what I've already done. And so I love the idea of that, just that proactive nature, and then not assuming that everybody maybe learns like we do. So that's great. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. So the second type of conversation that I support leaders having with their team members is just a pulse check. So pulse check is just checking in to see how things are going. in my experience, a lot of times we feel that, oh, well, we do staff meetings, we do team meetings. So we're having these opportunities of checking in. But those are very
Mm.
agenda based and task oriented. So it's not necessarily really taking a close look at the individual and really tell me how are things going and what resources might you need. So this one is really looking specifically at an individual and their relationship within the organization. It's
Mhm.
really thinking about the engagement and the morale
Mhm.
and how do we support this. So really taking some of the task focused nature out of it
Mhm.
and really just having that one-on-one conversation.
Mhm.
Again, it even though it may be initiated by the leader or by management,
Mhm.
it really should be one that we're hearing from the person themselves and they're able to really share what it is that they're noticing and what they might need in order to continue to be successful. A lot of times, these may also become future oriented conversations where we're talking about, like, well, XYZ project is really going well. I'm noticing that I really enjoy this area of work, and are there other opportunities in the future to really be able to grow in this particular area? So you may be able to start thinking about like career types of conversations
Mhm.
and development training, succession planning. A lot of things can really come out of these type of conversations
Mhm.
if you just take the time to like do a little check-in and pulse check. And for this, it doesn't necessarily have to be an hour long conversation. It really could be 30 minutes. In some cases, 15, 20 minutes. It can be more informal, whether it's over lunch or over coffee,
Mhm.
over a Zoom call, whatever that's
Mhm.
needed to really just be able to have, these kind of proactive ongoing discussions to say, you know what, really just want to know how you're doing. And you might be surprised what comes out of these conversations. There may be some really good learning
Mhm.
that comes out that can be reapplied to the organization. It may support different process areas and may support new strategic focus for your organization. So it has a lot of potential for really
Mhm.
supporting not only the individual, but the organization as a whole. And when you have these conversations with all of your people consistently over time, is also developing this culture of like, hey, my voice matters.
Mhm.
You have more engaged individuals, and then
Mhm.
also there's a level of proactiveness on that individual's part too, knowing that my leaders, my supervisor, my manager,
Mhm.
whomever,
Mhm.
are really interested and invested in hearing from me,
Mhm.
then having the opportunity to have more, just maybe be more proactive
Mhm.
and really owning that my voice matters in this organization.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Even as you name it, the pulse, or call it a pulse check. When you think about just in regular health, right? When we take our pulse, we're checking for signs of vitality. Like, is our heart beating
Mhm.
at the rate that it should be? And it's just that kind of check in to say, are things as vibrant as we hope that they are? And I think that that's really important, just because of it's an investment in the ethos of an organization, and it's just better to like know that something is beating, even if it's beating more slowly or
Mhm.
beating more rapidly, before you flatline. Because even with the whole title of this talk, is it's we should be having these conversations before bad news. Like, we don't want to experience some sort of unnecessary collision when we could
Mhm.
have kind of had some warning signs or what have you. And
Mhm.
so that's kind of
Mhm.
in a negative sense, but I think there's a lot of upside to creating that regular touch base. One of the organizations that I serve has a great rhythm of that. They put a lot of emphasis on people and holistic health. So not just productivity, but the health of the person, because they know that if the participants on the team are emotionally healthy, physically healthy, and in their case, spiritually healthy, they know that that person's going to be a great team contributor. And so, what I've
Right.
seen once, basically, they've adopted a practice of weekly meetings where there's a check-in, and there's like a personal
Mhm.
check-in. It's totally voluntary in terms of what people share. They can share like a personal update, like what are they experiencing or what would they like, just for people to kind of be mindful of for them. And then also, what are the things in their docket that they're working through from a work standpoint. And what I've noticed is that team's culture, the people are bonded together. And so when it comes to being in the trenches with work and getting projects done, there's a lot of empathy built up. There's a lot of emotional investment, and people begin to
Mhm.
kind of track each other's story. And so it's
Mhm.
just perfect because, you know, when you're working on projects, you're going to end up running into situations where there may be a little friction or maybe a difference of opinion, but because the culture and the ethos has been developed, there's a lot of emotional capital and investment,
Mhm.
relational
Mhm.
capital within the team. So they can ride through the storms because there's been that steady drip of investment, like outside of drama. So
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah, that's one place that I've kind of noticed that.
Right. Well, that's excellent. And I think that's a really good example of seeing how it's lived out within an organization and the benefits that it really has. Because, yes, going back to kind of what the title of this is, if you're doing this early and often, then you've built up kind of that reserve. So when these hard, difficult conversations do need to occur, you've already laid the groundwork of we have a very collaborative, open, environment where dialogue takes place. It's multi-directional, and it just really supports being able to then go into some more of the more difficult conversations or some of the more formal ones that would come like during a performance appraisal process
Mm-hmm.
or something like that. Now, you mentioned a little bit about the relational capital that's built up so that when you're working through projects and stuff, you know, you really have that basis and that context
Mm-hmm.
already built. And that slightly leads into the third type of conversation that I would suggest that leaders have with their people. And that's really, I would say, whether it's thinking about like seasonal times or it's really these time critical conversations.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to think about this before a big project is taking place or a big kickoff or right after that has happened. So pre or post, being able to have these conversations. When you're entering or exiting very maybe stressful times or times where things are moving much quicker,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really good to be able to have these conversations with people to really set the stage for. I know we're going to move into this more intense period, and so how do we do this well,
Mm-hmm.
ensuring that yes, you're bringing your whole self to this particular instance and ensuring that we are able to execute very well. So whether it's pre or post, I skew towards like before the intensity happens
Mm-hmm.
because it really just helps set the stage in a more positive tone to be able to go into that as a collaborative body, as a team, and really execute well. But you can also do that on the back end as well. It's a really good opportunity to kind of get lessons learned. So that's reapplied to the next project or the next launch that you're doing. And it's just really going to be able to be, I guess, brought back into the organization and maybe institutionalized a bit. So that's the benefit of doing it post as well, where you can really document those lessons learned. But because these times are intense and a bit of stress associated with it,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's good stress or not, it does have a level of stress associated with it. Being proactive and saying, hey, I want to make sure that I'm supporting my team, I'm supporting my people the best I can. Let's have this critical conversation now to ensure that they are supported and are able to execute well.
Definitely. You know, one of the things that I think can be an extra layer of frustration for team members is when a team is under pressure and it seems like the leader is missing in action.
Mm-hmm.
It just feels
Mm-hmm.
so inappropriate because you know that the manager or the leader or the director or whoever is the person that holds the largest share of responsibility. But when they're nowhere to be found and there's struggle, it just has a way of having a really negative impact on morale. So I like
Mm-hmm.
the idea and your encouragement that a leader should kind of see, maybe challenge in advance of the time. Maybe it's a rigorous schedule, or you know, it could be like if there's an organization that functions around events. Sometimes when things get closer and closer to the
Mm-hmm.
timeline of the event, it becomes more and more intense. And so, just to kind of look at that, know that, and kind of prepare the team for that, I think is a lot of there's a lot of wisdom to that for a leader, and I think that it only strengthens their credibility as well as the belief of the team's belief and their concern for the
Mhm.
organization, not just for the organization, but for the people that make up the organization.
Right.
So,
Yeah, that's perfect. That's really good. So, just to recap, the three types of conversations that leaders should be having early and often within the first 90 days of whether it's a new hire or an individual transitioning into a new role, that really helps with the onboarding process and really setting the stage for, hey, this is a collaborative environment. We really value being able to have these times of discussion, and not only are you learning us, we're learning too. So, like, this is really supportive in that. So, that's the first type of conversation. The second one is a pulse check, really just checking in with individuals. And I loved your example of kind of optional kind of check in that this organization does on a weekly basis. And then the third one, really looking at time sensitive or like really critical periods of time and having pre and post check-ins to really be able to support our teams doing their best in a very maybe pressure filled or stress filled time, and really setting the stage for executing with excellence. So, yeah.
definitely. Well, Crystal, thank you so much for walking us through those three critical questions, or conversations, rather, that
Mhm.
we as leaders should be having. I think that they are invaluable, and we need to really put them in our pocket and pull them out regularly, because it'll help us in our leadership. So, I think we should let everybody know if you are facing different dynamics in your organization and you want to have a sounding board, you want to talk to an expert who really gets not just organizations, but the people aspect of organizations, in addition to organizational strategy and management and things like that, I would definitely encourage you to sign up with Crystal for a strategy session. She is able to really dig into your organization and the different dynamics that you're facing and give really great counsel around how to navigate those dynamics. So we're going to drop a link into the comments where you can sign up for a strategy session with Crystal. But we want to thank you for joining us today for today's People Chat. Before bad news hits, what are the three conversations that we need to be having early and often? So with that, we wish you the best until next week's People Chat, same time. Um, Probably a different place, but nonetheless, we'll be here with some great information for you as leaders. And if you haven't already, please do share this broadcast, because you never know, it may help someone who's leading a team or an organization. It may
Right.
help them to manage their team better and serve them better as they're serving that greater mission. So until next time, thanks.
Yeah. You guys take care.
Take care.
Thanks, Lori.
All right. Bye.
Okay, bye.